All right. Good evening, everyone out there, Facebook and YouTube, and down the road to podcast listeners. This is Chris from the Common Grounds podcast. And tonight we have a very special event. We are interviewing Roman, and Roman is the inventor of a little gadget called the Joepresso. And it is, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm become a really big um, coffee gadget nerd. I mean, if you can see on the background here, everything I've can get my hands on. I've been collecting and seeing the different nuances of the way it brews and the way you can get different flavors out of different brew methods. And I'm a huge Prismo fan. I brew my wife a Prismo Americano every morning, maybe two or three, depends on what we're doing. But it's I'm really excited about looking at this more in depth and finding out how Roman came up with it. A little bit about his background. I've been chatting with him here in the green room, and it sounds like we're going to have a really, really good show. So thanks for tuning in. If you've got questions or comments about the Joepresso or about the Common Grounds podcast, please put them up in the comments wherever you're watching, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on my personal Facebook page, jump over to YouTube and watch me on YouTube. Help me get those numbers up there. But anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight. Let's get the show started with a little bit of Dom Coors. All right. Good evening, Roman, and welcome to the Common Grounds podcast. How are you tonight?
Great, Chris. Thank you for having me.
I really, really enjoyed talking to you a little bit already in the green room about what you've got on the table. But before we dive into the Joepresso, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to fall in love with espresso and decided that you were going to do this.
Sure. I always loved coffee. Like most people, I would say. But I really started appreciating coffee when I lived in Italy for a couple of years. And, it's part of their culture. They drink espresso morning, day, and night. And so did I. So when I came back, espresso tasted a little different here in the U.S. We use different types of roasts. You go into Starbucks, you get a dark roast. You go into an independent shop, you're going to get something very bright, as you call it. But to me, it tastes a bit sour, usually, just not something I'm used to. So that's how I became a fan of espresso and Americano and just, dark, strong coffee. So at home, I would usually make just an Aeropress, just a stronger Aeropress. But every day I'd go out, to Starbucks or somewhere to get myself a nice strong coffee. And until the pandemic, that's pretty much how it went. But a couple of months ago, I moved to Gateway, Colorado. And for most people who've never heard of it, it's about an hour from Grand Junction, which is also not a huge place. But it's on the map. So the closest cafe of any sort is an hour away from me. And basically, I had to go up with something because I was home, I was stuck, and I was drinking Aeropress. It was good, but I was like, I need a stronger coffee. I can't take it anymore. After a couple of weeks, it was just like, what do I do? And so I thought, okay, how do they make espresso? How do they make a strong coffee? And basically, I thought, well, if I put a disc on top of the coffee, and a disc with holes in it. Some people, I realize now, use another filter, paper filter, to put on top of the coffee, which is basically keep it down and create a layer of coffee, and pour water on top, and then press it through. Your regular percolation method. I created this disc about 15 minutes after it came to mind. I cut it out of a plastic bottle, And I was so amazed with the difference, with the taste I got out of it. It actually reminded me of Italy. And I was like, okay, amazing. I got to do something with this. You know, because it was kind of a pain. You drop the disc in, it doesn't fall in straight, it kicks up the coffee. So I was like, I'm not going to be doing this every day. I need to come up with a better method. I went to the drawing board, came up with about 10 designs, you know, different ideas. And one of them was actually using a real espresso portafilter. But then I thought, I don't need all of that. It's, you know, it's expensive. It's going to tip over. It's too bulky. But I did use basically a filter basket and the shower screen from the espresso machines that you can get. And the reason I chose this design is because, first of all, it's all stainless steel. It's it's food safe. It's durable. It's available. It's
you're not having to reinvent the wheel for it. You're not having to reinvent the wheel.
I don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's right, because I thought, okay, I have a background in 3D design, so you know, I made this Joepresso attachment myself. I could have made pretty much anything, but I thought, okay, manufacturing, food safety, all these considerations. I want to keep the plastic away from, you know, the water and the coffee. I don't need to add any additional plastic paste to it. So that was my thought process behind it. Plus, it's cheaper to produce a mold for something this small and get all the other parts from manufacturers who've been making them for decades. One thing I have to say, Aeropress is plastic, so you're still using a plastic part, but at least your coffee's not touching it anymore.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, since, and we already spoke about it a little bit beforehand. So your typical Aeropress is an immersion brew method.
Right. So and the reason I came up with the disc, right? So on a typical Aeropress, either you do it inverted or regular. At the end, you have your filter, you have your coffee and water mixed inside. It's immersed in the water and it sits there for a period of time. It could be a minute, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 30 seconds, it's up to you. And then you press it out through the filter to separate the water from the coffee, right? Or coffee from the grind at that point. With this method, you have a layer of coffee completely separated by a barrier. You know, that disc, now it's a real shower screen. So basically your coffee is in a basket. It's completely separated from the water until you start pressing. You can leave it there for as long as you want. It's not mixing. It's not starting to brew, except for the little heat that's getting transferred. So that's the biggest difference. And then you can pre-infuse it. You can just press it lightly until you see the first drop, let off to release the pressure, let it bloom, pre-infuse. Sometimes I do it for 10 seconds, sometimes longer. And then you plunge it through. You just press all the water through, and you know, as it's flowing through the grinds, it's stripping them of all the dissolvable solids and oils, which is, again, it's stripping. It's completely different from immersion, where it's just floating in there. It's not really stripping, right? It's diffusing. It's a different process, and you get a different taste.
Now, you know, and I saw it in the conversations that you've had on a couple of the Facebook groups, and the first thing that anybody, and you know, the comment, the question I'm going to ask.
It was my question in the groups, guys, what do you consider an espresso, right?
Right.
And what's an espresso? It's a method. A lot of people say it's a method. You got to use 9 bars of pressure if that's what you were. And that's pretty much it. So they're saying it's a method that requires 9 bars of pressure. You know, and I'm a gemologist. I can identify stones using scientific method, but I don't look at how they were produced, because nobody's going to tell me how they were produced. The only thing I know is I have this stone. What scientific method can I use to identify this stone? Was it treated with anything? Is it glass? Is it a diamond, right? And so when you bring me a cup of coffee and you say, okay, this is an espresso, prove it, right? And I'm supposed to say, okay, this is coffee or this is an espresso. What scientific method can I use? people say, okay, you can use your taste buds. And again, as a scientist, when I identify the color of a stone, I have a color chart. Even two diamonds, you put them between two color stones or two color diamonds, and you grade them and you say, is it closer to that one or this one? You don't rely on your sight without a reference. So that didn't work for me. So I got a refractometer, right? That's a similar tool to actually what we use in gemology, refraction. But this has a brick scale, and this was suggested by some of the people. And I guess espresso is total dissolved solids of 8 to 12 or 8 to 11, with extraction of 18 plus, extraction rate of 18 plus. And I was able to achieve that with the Joepresso, with this instrument, this attachment. So I've tested it plenty of times. It can do it. And then people say, well, numbers aren't the only thing. You got to go by taste. Well, guys, I'm not going to ask you to rely on my taste buds because, like I said, everybody has a different preference. In Italy, they prefer dark roast. They prefer bitterness. Here, a lot of people at least prefer brightness and, medium and light roasts. What tastes like espresso to you? Is it strength? I've let professionals taste this. I went to a cafe with a Joepresso, and I said, hey, I came up with this idea. Can I show it to you? And the guy was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he actually let me use his cafe, get behind the counter, use his coffee, and make a few shots for him. And he said, yeah, this is definitely an espresso. He was like, how's this different from Prismo and all that? But after he tasted it, that's all there was to it. And I was like, yeah, this is an espresso. This tastes like an espresso. I let a few other guys taste it. One of them said, this tastes like an espresso, but I'd have to see how it comes through in a milk drink, in a latte.
Right.
He made a latte and he said, yeah, it's an espresso. So again, these are, just, what do you call them? Some people's thoughts. I can't tell you if it's an espresso or not. It does not use 9 bars. And, American Coffee Association or whatever you call it, they define espresso as something that's made with 9 bars of pressure. If you look at the way Italians define it, there's no mention of pressure. If you look at the way Wikipedia defines it, there's no mention of pressure. So but in terms of Wikipedia, this is an espresso. In terms of some other folks, it's not an espresso.
And if you look at the general coffee drinking populace of the United States, most people think espresso's a roast level of coffee. I mean, like,
okay, yeah.
I mean,
if you're buying coffee, if you're buying grinds, or if you're buying coffee beans, you see espresso and you think, oh, that's a dark roast.
Right. So
it's not even a type of a drink at that point. I have something I made here. So I wanted to see what's going to be the difference. So basically, I have a bike pump, right? And I can create a lot of pressure in here. I've got it up to 6 bars. I didn't have a gasket that would hold more, so
okay.
But
that's pretty awesome, though, that you're like, I'm just going to put a bicycle pump on my Aeropress and see.
Yeah, I mean, you can use a big pump. It's easier. It's a small pump. Not as easy, but it doesn't take any room, right? Because all those levers, it's a big construction. How am I going to build a lever? And this was really easy. Just drill a couple of holes and screw it on.
How many Aeropresses have you went through at this point in time?
That's it. That's all I have.
That's it. Okay, awesome.
I was gonna buy more. I actually ordered a Go because people are asking, is this gonna fit a Go? And from what I read, it said it's the same size, so it should fit a Go. But someone said that my Prismo doesn't fit a Go, and I have no idea why it doesn't. I haven't tested it myself, so I ordered a Go. I'll have some news for you there. But
that's awesome.
If it doesn't, I can create another attachment for the cards. The biggest problem and the reason I actually started the Kickstarter campaign is because I need to create a mold for the attachment. And if any of you have dealt with manufacturing, a mold costs money, at least $7,000. So, I was thinking, this is a nice hobby. I have a job. This is a hobby. This is something I came up with and I just wanted to share with people. And, investing $7,000 into something that I just came up with and I don't know if anybody needs.
Right.
I'd rather do a Kickstarter.
Well, there's tons of people out there that are just like me and collect coffee making memorabilia, if you will, that just it's just fun. It's just a fun hobby. What are you looking?
I've already probably spent $500 on prototypes and stuff, but
well, that's not
the difference.
That's not bad for a product development at all. What are you?
Yeah, I know. It's if I had to hire people to do it, of course it would cost me thousands. 3D design, all these things cost money, but it's a great hobby.
What are you shooting for in price? Have you even got to that point yet?
Okay, so on Kickstarter it's $40, and a lot of things went into consideration, and the biggest one is the volume, sales volume prediction, right? And as you can see, there's a lot of interest. A lot of people are liking it. A lot of people are sharing it, but in terms of backers, it's still slow. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe 1% of Aeropress users, target for all-time sales, but that's not a lot. I'm not gonna be able to pay rent off of that, So
right.
For me, this is just a nice thing. It's fun, I like it. I'm happy to provide it to people. It's basically just to be part of the community. And so the price was based on the cost of the mold. That was the biggest concern because the mold has to pay for itself eventually, right?
Right.
And that's why I thought, okay, we get 500 backers each Aeropress, just the mold part. It's already going to be over $10.
Yeah.
So I wanted to price it so the cafes can sell it at least have some sort of a markup.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
not as big as another products, but at least whatever the average is. Keystone.
That's really cool. And what are you looking at on the Kickstarter? So I did a Kickstarter for Roasters Marketplace when we launched, and I was able to, reach the goal that we set, and mainly because a couple of really close friends really heavily invested into the Kickstarter, which was fantastic, and was able to let me launch with a lot more development on the website side of things and some advertising, which was really, really cool.
Okay.
But what is your approach on getting more on that Kickstarter? What are you doing?
So I set the target for 15,000, simply considering because 5,000 is going to go, or 7,000 actually is going to go to make the mold, and the rest is to buy all the other parts, shipping, packaging, all these things. My time that goes into it just to actually organize everything.
Oh yeah.
There's really not, I'm not looking to make a profit off of at least the Kickstarter campaign. It's just to pay for the initial.
Pay for itself, right?
Yeah. After that, I would consider reducing the price a little bit because after the mold's made, it might cost the actual part itself. It's only a couple of bucks after you have a mold made. So.
Right. And then you're sourcing the basket and the portafilter.
Yeah, they're pretty standard. Like all companies have baskets and portafilters. I haven't mentioned, but this is pressurized. Again, pressurized baskets are not a new invention. They're made in China. They're made in the U.S. They're made in Italy. So it's not a big deal to find the manufacturer who has experience making.
Right. Show me the one, or show the listeners, the viewers, the one that you started grinding on first. You were showing me earlier.
Okay. Yeah. So I when I came up with the idea and I said, okay, I'm going to use a basket. I went to, what are they called? I'll remember his name. It's important. Anyway, I went to a really nice gentleman. His name is Alex from Espresso West here in Grand Junction. He's a big expert, and he was kind enough to share a couple of baskets with me. So he gave me 2 of these baskets. Just a standard very standard basket. I think it's size 54, if I'm not mistaken. But the problem was I couldn't fit it in because I just cut a hole out and I tried to fit it in, and there was too big of a gap. First of all, it wouldn't even fit in there. And then there was too big of a gap after it did. So I had to grind it down. And, you know, I bought a grinder. It took me a day to grind this down. You know, grinding metals. It's fun. And, you know, when you don't have a shop and you're sitting at home in Colorado, you got to drive an hour to get a tool. So it was fun, but basically, you know, I got it to fit in there and it worked. And with the screen, it produced something similar to what I got with this stupid thing. And then I went from there, and there was practically no crema. So when you use a standard basket with low pressure, you're not getting crema. And a lot of thought went into how do we make crema with this. Stupid experiments. You know, if you know what crema is, it's basically CO2. Bubbles up after the coffee comes out. The pressure is reduced. As the pressure reduces, the water can't hold as much CO2, so it starts releasing it. That's how you get, you know, your seltzer water, your sodas, and all that. Some of experiments were, okay, how do I inject more CO2 in this, because I can't get it from just pressing. You know, you toss baking soda in a coffee, it's going to produce crema. So
right.
It tastes the same, but it's going to produce crema. You pour a little seltzer in your coffee, it's going to produce crema. None of those were great solutions, but it was fun to experiment with. And then I ordered a couple of pressurized baskets. So this is what a pressurized basket is, if you can see.
Yeah, let me drop off.
So basically, it looks the same on one side, but it's a double wall. So on the back, there's only one hole. And what happens is, because there's only one hole, pressure builds up inside. On espresso machines, it's used to kind of control the pressure. So if your grind is too large, too coarse, and it's letting the water through too fast, that little hole is gonna help build up that pressure that's not being built up by the grind itself, and so you're still gonna get a good extraction. That's why a lot of the consumer espresso machines have pressurized baskets. But also the stream. It's a very thin and a very strong stream that it produces, this little hole. And as it hits the coffee, it creates tiny bubbles and produces crema. So bubbles are oxygen, they're not carbon, but the result is the same. You get a beautiful, beautiful crema. So it was just a lucky coincidence, I guess.
So you've got a fan club of my roasters currently watching. Shane says, looks like a very cool attachment. We just pre-ordered one on Kickstarter. Looking forward to trying it out. And then TNT Coffee Roaster says, agreed, Shane. Let me see. I just ordered one as well. So there you go. We've got some coffee roasters that are really interested in this. And that's what's really cool about this community of coffee roasters, is most of these guys that are the small level coffee roasters, you know, they're making their own baggers. You know, they're making all these things that they can to save money or to produce a result that they can't get. And that's why I was like, man, this guy's going to fit in right perfect with what I've been doing. And that's really cool. And I watched you released a newer video recently on Facebook, and you had that close up of the stream of it hitting and it creating that crema. Have you found that well, let me go back to what grind are you going for? A really classic fine?
It's a little bit coarser than the classic espresso grind, and the reason is I just don't have enough strength to push it through. You know, unless I use the pump, I'm not going to be able to push it through the fine grind that you would use in a 9-bar espresso machine. Right. So, oh yeah, I hacked my grinder. There's a video on YouTube on how to hack a Cuisinart grinder. It was on sale for $40. I thought, okay, I don't have, I have a manual grinder for espresso. It's great. It takes me 5 minutes to grind a cup of coffee, and I actually, I use a drill to do it because it's too much. But so I got this, and I was like, okay, I use a pressurized basket. It doesn't really matter if it's a perfect grind. But it was way too coarse. It was just completely off. So I had to hack it. I had to put a spacer in between the boards at the top board to lower it. So when you twist it, it actually goes all the way down. I'm getting an espresso grind from it now. So for $50, you can make an espresso electric grinder if you want.
And you did you put the hack video on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. If you Google Cuisinart hack for Joepresso, you'll find it.
Nice.
But if you break your grinder or hurt yourself, don't hold me responsible, please. Do it at your own risk. So like I said, if you buy, ground coffee, this I'm sure this is for espresso, right? But it's a little bit too coarse. It works, it's fine, but it produces less crema than when I do it with a grinder. Still enough, but there's a difference.
I'm really excited in trying some of I've got some amazing espresso roasts, espresso blends, I should say, on my website that they make really.
I'm not trying to promote one brand over another.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I have a bunch of bags over here. They're all great in their own way. Let's see, Lone Cone is a local producer. Kiln is local to Grand Junction. Mountain Air Roasters, this is the one I told you about before with a 20% Robusta in it. So I went to the company, they roast their own coffee. Basically they have a lot of different single origin ones, and they have a couple of espresso roasts. So I was asking, do you have anything Italian roast? 20% Robusta. They're like, we don't, but we can add Robusta to anything. So they added 20% for me. Tastes great. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. How does it hold up in? I mean, you're America, the classic. I would say more people consume espresso in milk-based drinks than they do as on its own. So how does it hold up in a latte or a cappuccino?
So yeah, good question. I don't personally drink a lot of lattes or cappuccinos, but I had a couple of people taste this. I went into a cafe and I asked I went to Kiln and asked the gentleman to taste it, and he was very welcoming. He let me into their kitchen and let me make a few shots from their coffee, and he was asking me, how's this different from the other popular attachment for Aeropress? And the whole immersion versus percolation brewing method, that's one thing. But when he tasted it, he said, okay, I see the difference. This is espresso. That's all he said. I appreciate it, and he shared our post on Facebook or whatever, he shared it, and that was great. But another gentleman I went to, and he tasted it, he's like, this tastes like an espresso, but I'll have to see it in a milk drink before I can tell you if it's an espresso or not. So he made it himself a latte. He said, yeah, this is an espresso. It works. So I'm not an expert. I can't tell you how it mixes with milk, but that's how one gentleman tested it as being, that was his criteria for calling it an espresso.
That's awesome. I've messed around with the Prismo. I don't have an espresso machine at home yet. I mean, eventually I will get there, but I have my Prismo, and I've experimented with doing the cappuccinos and the lattes with it, and it is very dependent on what bean combination, roast combination that you're using, on what level of crema you get, and then how it holds up. So it's very particular.
That's very interesting, because of one of the videos I saw of their product, and their recommendation is to use very fresh coffee. Mm-hmm. Although most people say you need to let the coffee sit at least 2 days before you brew. And of course, the more CO2 it has, the more crema you're going to get.
Correct.
Like I said, you're going to get crema with Joepresso whether you use something that's a week old or a month old or probably even a year old. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but it's always going to be a pretty decent amount. And I mean, you can pick any coffee I have here. I'll demonstrate for you. We can do that a little bit later if you want.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually looking on your website right now. I'm going to show one of your videos here in just a second.
Okay. I haven't really updated the website as much as Facebook and Kickstarter.
Okay, so should go to there for a new video.
Kickstarter will have newer stuff on it. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Which video should I hit up on?
What do you want to demonstrate? How do you use it? There's a how-to. There's a short and a long of how to use it, or how it works, which is good run through. Are you on Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm going to share my screen here in a second. Okay, we're going to walk me through here. There we go.
Oh, this is the long one.
It's a long one, okay.
So if you go down a little bit further. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you have to go up. I'm sorry.
You're good.
And there.
This one?
No, keep going up. Yeah, so this is the long version of actually how to make an espresso, and I think this is a good one to play.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that long. Oh, it's too long. That is long.
So I'm going to move up to where you're actually.
Yeah, you can move up to where I actually make it because I just described how it works. Yeah.
Right here.
So basically, I fill the basket, add the screen and the water. I let it pre-infuse a little bit, and then I plunge it through. And as I plunge, you see a lot of the crema just starts coming right up, and you can see the whole coffee is white with bubbles. And after I stop pressing, they all rise to the top. So, I mean, I wasn't using any specific coffee with that. That was just the first one that I picked from the shop. You'll get pretty much the same result with any coffee you use, as long as it's, fine enough grind.
That's awesome. Just I mean, you've got a good quarter-inch.
Too much crema. I want to make a full cup. You can't use that small cup anymore because the crema is going to hit the top. So you got to use it.
But it looks good. It looks good. What are you putting in? So what's your weight for the coffee and what's your weight for the water and what's your temperature you're hitting? Okay,
so two things. Originally, I was using the scale, and I was weighing out 14 grams, and then I was doing, I want a 2-to-1 ratio. So I was aiming to get 28 grams of, end product, and the coffee retains about the same amount of water as it weighs. So I would just triple it, so 14 times 3. So that's the amount of water I'd be putting in. I realized that if I just fill the water to the top of this handle, so if it hits the top, you're getting pretty much the amount you need for a full double espresso. So if you fill the basket all the way up and you pour enough water just to touch the tip, that's all you need to do. You don't have to wait out every time, unless you really want to, or you have other ratios you're going for. I go for standard double. So that's the way I do it. Regarding water temperature, I use boiling water simply because I don't preheat the basket. It's a metal basket. It's got 14 grams of coffee in it. So I use boiling water. By the time it passes through the screen, it's already cooler. And that's as hot as you can get it unless you actually want to preheat it first.
Awesome. And you're getting, what's the weight you're getting usually after?
Yeah, so like I said, it's about double, so roughly 30
Okay.
minutes.
So, and that's about a standard single shot.
So it's a double shot. It's a double basket. It's a 14-gram basket.
Okay.
Again, depending on who you ask, right? Italians,
Right.
Americans, they consider what a single and a double is differently. But it's basically 14-gram basket. So if you fill it all the way to the top, it's a 14-gram basket, and you're adding 35, 33 gram. I'm sorry, 45 grams of water. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio, and then results 2-to-1 because you're only getting about 30 out.
That's awesome.
And you can tamp it with the screen and stuff. You don't have to buy a tamper. That's how I did it. I just tamped it and evened it out with this. Recently, I bought a leveler and a tamper, but this works just almost as well. So,
when it's all, one of the nice things about an Aeropress is the ability to take it with you. So does it all? Is it travel friendly as well?
I mean, I put everything in here. I put it in my Aeropress, and I'm ready to go. I mean, that's all there's to it, right?
Yep. So you
go
camping.
There's nothing else, no other parts. I can't press it in as fast because there's a small hole on the bottom. It's not letting the air out.
That's awesome. Do you have any idea what pressure you are getting?
I don't, because if I put this thing lower, I'd be able to kind of gauge it. But since I have the 2 holes to hold the, so what I have is I have the plunger, right? And then I align it. I put a peg in here, so it holds it in, so that I can build up the pressure in there. So with my pressure gauge, I can only go about a 1/4 inch. That's not all the pressure you can put on it. So I don't have a gauge on the standard one. I'll measure it eventually. I'll buy another Aeropress.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin the last one I have. That's the original. So, like
That's
I said, we're an hour away from the closest city, and everybody's sold out of Aeropresses at this point. So,
Yep. I actually I bought a new one a few weeks ago just so I can use for pictures, because I wore away the lettering off the one I had because I use it every day. So I had to buy one for pictures, of all things, right? When you launch, so you get, say you hit your Kickstarter, you get the molds made, you're ready to go. What is going to be your primarily means of sales? What are you doing? Are you looking for Amazon? Are you looking for small shops? Are you looking for all the above, your website?
I would say all of the above. I would consider. I haven't really thought that far about it. Like I said, I don't expect to make a lot of money off of this, so I'm going to make it as simple as possible. I would prefer to just do wholesale. I would prefer to ship to Amazon and let them handle the deliveries of it. And maybe my own website would just redirect there, simply because I don't want to spend my whole day with logistics of every sale.
Yeah.
I do have a day job that I love, and I really enjoy doing. I'm a developer, so this it pays more than this product will probably ever make. And so this is really, I'm just doing it for myself, for all you guys, if you're interested.
But the nice part about that is you do have a paying job.
I do have a paying job.
Yeah, and you're not relying on this.
I'm not trying to make this take over my paying job, because I really do enjoy it. I enjoy the process. It's challenging me, and it's really cool. So
it's a fun side gig that is tasty and delicious as well.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just as fun and just as interesting, but it's different. And this is a niche product. Like I said, it's not something that's gonna sell 1 million units. So when people say, "Hey, why are you charging more than the Aeropress cost itself?" And yeah, it's $40, guys. And I'm sorry, but the mold costs 7 grand to produce. We have 75, 80 backers right now, or I'm hoping for 500. But even at 500, that mold is still, it's going to cost $10 per product, not counting anything else. So eventually, maybe the price will come down. But I mean, if you guys want it made, you got to order it at that price. That's all I can tell you. Or you can make it yourself. I mean, I made it myself. You guys can make it yourselves. And it's not the same as ordering it online,
right?
With a little bit of more headache.
You get those people, they're like, well, the components are $2 less than what the actual product is. You're like, yeah, but how much is your time worth?
Right. I mean, you can buy a basket on Amazon. You can buy a set of 10 gaskets online. You can buy an Aeropress and cut a hole in it, right? So there you go. I mean, you're going to buy another Aeropress unless you're never going to use it the original way again. So that's $30 right there.
Yep.
Your Aeropress. But you can do it, and I'll be glad to tell you how to do it, and we can work on it together. But it's as far as a product goes, it has costs. And unfortunately, I can't make them lower at this point. So as this progresses, do you see yourself making other coffee related inventions, or was this just kind of one of those? My girlfriend's sitting here nodding. Like I said, I hacked the grinder. I mean, I bought it, and it's like, oh my God, this grind's just way too coarse. And my girlfriend goes, "You're gonna take it back, right?" I'm like, "No, wait, why would I take it back? It's right here. I gotta drive an hour to take it back. I'm just gonna make it work." So I'll make things work, and if they're good enough to make them work for you, I'll be glad to share.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So I'm going to look over at your Kickstarter right now. And when we started, I think we had 76 backers, or last time I looked. So you're at 77 backers now, and you're just a little short of $4,000 with 33 days to go.
So it has been slow. I'm hoping for it to pick up a little. I'm hoping for it to pick up as I finally am able to ship some samples for reviews, because no one's held a sample except for me.
Right.
A few people who have tasted it. I'm expecting the new adapters any day now. I only have a couple here. I mean, these were the prototypes, the first prototypes I have. These are the things that are the problem, because they're, these are 3D printed. I had to pick the right material. I had to pick the right size based on the gasket I was going to use. This gasket I ordered is silicone, so it actually holds a lot more pressure than the original gasket I used. But it's a little bit thicker, so it doesn't fit in the original ones. I had to make them a little bit deeper. It's another couple of weeks of getting the prototypes done. So all these things, but I'm ready to ship them in a couple of days. I hope to get some good reviews and more coverage. That's all I can say. If anybody's interested in reviewing them, please reach out to me. If you have a following, to make a dent in it, I'll be happy to send you.
Yeah. It makes it really hard on some things like Reddit, right? So Reddit's like the king of making stuff go viral, but there's so many rules on every subreddit for coffee that you're never able to post a Kickstarter on there for anything.
Facebook, right? I mean, I actually got kicked out of a group, Espresso Aficionados. They were so mean. Other groups were very supportive, like, wow, cool product, good luck. Yeah. These guys are like, it's not 9 bars. Get it out of here. Stop posting. And it's like, guys, I'm literally inventing this, and I'm coming on here to find out what espresso is, what you guys consider it to be, and they're like, stop promoting your product. I'm like, guys, I don't have a product. I barely have a prototype. This is all I had. I mean, I had a cutout filter, and my first filter that I got that I ground down myself. I'm like, stop promoting your product. Okay.
I've got a few questions here from the Aeropress users group that I'm going to, let's see if I have asked them already here. Let me look at here. I think we've already covered both those questions that I had. Yeah, we've already covered both those questions. So we've already asked that. That's
I hope people understand how it works, because I would think that after making, about 5 videos on Kickstarter alone of how it works, how I make this espresso, some people still have questions. They don't understand why or how, or maybe I can go through it again if you'd like to make an espresso or to explain.
I think you've covered it well enough. Where else can they find you besides, let's see, we've got joepresso.com. We've got your Kickstarter. I'm going to share your Facebook here in a second.
Okay. And we're also on Instagram.
I don't think I've got you on Instagram yet. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's see here.
Is it Joepresso Coffee on Instagram? It's Joepresso Coffee, but
let me share
we're
your
following
Facebook.
You on Instagram, so you might be able to find us through there.
Yeah. Here we go. I should have pulled this up beforehand. If you're listening to the show, sorry about the delay. Now my phone's going off. There's an Amber Alert, so we've got to jump in the Batmobile and go do that. Here we go.
So while you do that, like I said, unfortunately, we have COVID to deal with. We have fires now to deal with here in Colorado and California.
Yeah.
I mean, there's smoke outside. You go outside, you can smell it. People have to stay safe. We're staying home, not really going to cafes much. Drive through, pick up a bag, So, I mean, that's what led to this whole thing. And you said you love gadgets. You have a lot of gadgets as far as I know. I wasn't so big into it because I used to go to cafes a lot. I mean, I spend a big budget in cafes, and it's a conscious decision. It brings me joy. I enjoy coffee, and until this pandemic, I really didn't think that I needed a lot of gadgets at home because I could always go out and get a coffee.
Yeah.
But since I'm stuck, I mean, that's how I came up with it. If I had a lot of gadgets, maybe I would have never invented it. I would just switch gadgets. Maybe I
switch gadgets, yeah.
Machine, I wouldn't think of inventing something like this.
Well, hopefully this is one of the few good things that come out of the 2020 pandemic. Is the Joepresso. We can look at it from the future and say this inspired us all.
I doubt it was all worth it.
This has given us hope and dreams of the future, and what 2021 brings us as we move forward.
Change, right? For the change in how we make coffee.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I've shared your Facebook. I've shared your website and your Kickstarter, man. I was really impressed when I saw it, and I was like, well, that's just cool.
And Chris, one last thing before you go or we go is I wanted to ask your audience what they think a good bean and a good roast would be for Aeropress and Joepresso, because if you followed some of the discussions, some people said, okay, you have to use the darker roast, you have to use because the extraction you're going to get with lower pressure is different. And there are a lot of low pressure espresso extractions. Some people use 2 bars, some people use 8 bars, some people use 6 bars. Even with machines like the Flare or the Robot or the Rock. A lot of people say you get a better shot with 6 bars than 9 bars because it's easier to keep it consistent. The pressure consistent, because if you keep the pressure inconsistent, you start getting channeling and you get a bad extraction. So maybe you guys have coffees that you would recommend with Joepresso that I would try, that other people would try. I mean, it's an open-ended question to you guys in your community because you're the pros of this.
I just posted it on the threads. We'll see if we can get anybody to respond. We've got 6 viewers right now watching us live out there right now. We'll give them a minute to respond because there's about a 30-second delay on what's live and what's not. But since I don't have that much experience with espressos, I have definitely found with the Prismo that espresso blends tend to give a better crema. The flavors, I'm very lucky at what I do, and I have really, really
You know,
good
I
coffee.
have to say that crema is not an issue here, but after you've tasted, a half a dozen espresso blends, they're all bitterish. They're all they lack a lot of the sour notes, right? Uh, just the other day, I bought this Ethiopian, and it's a medium roast. And I have some other medium roasts that I don't really like. I feel they're too sour for me.
Mm-hmm.
But this really worked well. So I don't know if it's the origin that makes a difference because it's a medium roast. So I thought it would be too light for Joepresso, but it tastes really nice. So again, a question to the community of what would work well.
And that also depends on your taste. You can get there's some coffees that I absolutely love in the afternoon, and if I bring my wife a cup of it, she won't touch it. Too much, too citrusy or too floral. Just the different aromas that some people don't like. And now at this point, we used to drink really, really dark roasted coffee, and we've shifted now, and now we get a dark roast as a sub, and she's like, oh, well, that's not as good. I go back to medium. Bring me a medium. Don't,
Yeah, tastes shift all the time. You kind of get used to something, and then you're like, oh, I want something else.
And the roast level does depend, or the taste does depend on the roast level a lot. I have one roaster on Roasters Marketplace that actually does 3 roast levels of one bean, and that's all Liam and Ian does. And so like he's been roasting a Papua New Guinea roast, and you have light, medium, dark, and you taste those side by side, and there's a huge difference, even though it's from the same spot, and the same bean. So
I've noticed a lot of companies, well, some companies, especially the growers, they do that. And to me, it was always like, well, don't they know that there should be like one roast for their coffee that's the best? But I can see how some people just prefer a different taste. Some people do prefer more acidity. Some people prefer more bitterness or just less acidity. And I guess there's a buyer for all of those. Just maybe not me today, maybe me tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And something might cut through and make a perfect latte, or make a perfect cappuccino with a different roast, or with that milk drink, or we don't do dairy, so something that cuts through almond milk or oat milk has to be a lot more of a rich flavor profile with a roast. So there's so many, there's so many variables out there, man, that you can't. It's hard to say one way or another.
Well, Chris, this was a pleasure.
Definitely. And I'll be looking at it. I'll jump on the Kickstarter here, and get my name on the board and get myself down for one. If there's anybody watching, if somebody's been here, we've got TNT Coffee Roasters saying they would love to use their Aha Java medium. It's a Yemeni and Ethiopian blend, or the Lions Roast Peru and Yemen dark. If there isn't anybody that's already invested in Joepresso that's watching, Roman's been kind enough to offer our viewership a free Joepresso. So the first person that comments, prototype. First person to comment on this thread is going to get a prototype. So let's see what we can get. It's the mad dash to the keyboards. We've got 4 people watching out there. Somebody's going to get it. It might be everybody else has either done the Kickstarter or already has one there with you. We'll see. We'll give it a minute. We've got 5 people watching. Me, TNT Coffee Roasters. There we go.
Hey, we got a winner.
We got a winner. All right. I'll get you that.
You get their contact information for me?
Yep, we'll do.
Sounds great.
Definitely. I believe he's still roasting coffee in New York. So we'll be able to hook you up with him down the road. But Roman, once again, thanks for coming on. I hope we were able to highlight your product, your invention in a favorable light. And I'm really excited to get my hands on a prototype here that I will gladly pay for, because I'm a big believer in supporting other people that are like-minded entrepreneurs building something from the ground up. So thanks once again, and don't go anywhere. I'll hit you up in the green room once I close this out.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
everybody, for watching.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Common Grounds Podcast. We'd like to thank Roman once again and Joepresso. You can find his information in the comments. You can find him at joepresso.com. You can find him on Facebook, Facebook and Instagram. Currently, you can find the links there. Jump on, support him. Go on there, leave a comment, tell him where you heard about it. Let him know it was well worth his time coming on the show tonight. And once again, thanks for listening. We've got some roasters lined up for next week's podcast. We'll really appreciate you watching and downloading. We've got fans all over the country. We're actually interviewing a roaster from Norway here in a few weeks, I believe. Maybe next week I'll be interviewing a roaster from Norway. But anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight, everybody. And we're going to leave you with a little Dom Coors. Have a great night. Cheers.